Raypak, part of the Rheem family of companies. As a reminder to all of our participants, the instruction provided in this training is intended for qualified and experienced professionals. If you are not qualified, please do not attempt to apply these instructions on your own. This is another presentation of Raypak's Boiler Bite-Sized Bits. Welcome to another Boiler Bite-Sized Bit. In this module, we will discuss mode selection and some basic plumbing for the XFIIRE boilers. When ordering a hydronic heater, there are three possible ways to set it up. These are called modes and are effectively operating programs for the boiler. If the appliance has a water heater ID card, then it is a water heater, and there is only one mode of operation. This is a summary table for the hydronic type boilers. There are three modes to choose from: mode 1, 2, and 3. All must be plumbed primary secondary, as the XFIIRE boilers are low mass. All three modes can be applied to single or multiple boilers, and all can run with or without outdoor reset. The difference lies in the presence or absence of an indirect hot water system. If there is no indirect, then it is a mode 1. This is the most common configuration. If there is an indirect system present on the system loop, then it is a mode 2. If the indirect is present on the boiler loop, then it's a mode 3. Mode 2 can be ran with or without priority, while mode 3 is always with priority. First, we will present mode 1. Primary secondary plumbing is required. This is the most common configuration with hydronic type boilers. Here is a drawing for mode 1, primary secondary with a single boiler. It's primary secondary because there are two loops, the boiler loop and the system loop. The place where the two loops overlap is the decoupler. It is a mode 1 because of what is not here. There is no indirect domestic hot water system present. Mode 1 can also be ran in a cascade system. Here, boiler A on the left is the master boiler, and boilers B, C, and D are the followers. There is one decoupler for the system, and it supports the entire cascade. An important part of plumbing boilers in cascade is to use reverse return logic. The first boiler out to the loop is the last boiler to receive water back from the loop. So what makes a mode 1 primary secondary a mode 1? It's not what's there, but what's not there. There's no indirect domestic hot water system present. It's just a straight up hydronic heater. Next, we will present mode 2 for the XFIIRE. Primary secondary plumbing is required as before. The key thing that makes it a mode 2 is the indirect domestic hot water on the system loop. In mode 2, primary secondary, you still have the two loops, the boiler loop and the system loop. The decoupler is still there to pressure isolate the two loops. What makes this a mode 2 is the addition of an indirect domestic hot water heat exchanger tank on the system loop. Mode 2 is also possible in cascade. As with the single boiler system, the indirect domestic hot water tank is out on the system loop. When in cascade, there can be only one master boiler, the A boiler here. The other boilers are the follower boilers. Always apply reverse return logic to plumbing cascade systems. The first boiler to supply water to the system is the last on the return line from the system. So what makes a mode 2 primary secondary a mode 2? You have an indirect domestic hot water tank out on the system loop. Last, for the hydronic modes, we have mode 3 for primary secondary systems. The key thing that makes this a mode 3 is the indirect domestic hot water on the boiler loop. Mode 3 is always with priority. This is a mode 3 primary secondary single boiler system. The same plumbing is applied here. You have a boiler loop and you have a system loop. The decoupler is built in the same way to pressure isolate the two loops. The indirect domestic hot water heat exchanger is on the boiler loop in this case. Mode 3 can also be ran in cascade. Here the A boiler is the master boiler and the others are followers. The decoupler supports the whole cascade here. As with all boiler cascade systems, reverse return plumbing logic applies. It's a mode 3 because the indirect domestic hot water tank is out on the boiler loop. So what makes a mode 3 a mode 3? It must be plumbed primary secondary and it must have an indirect domestic hot water system on the boiler loop. Here are some overall pointers on plumbing systems and how they relate to mode selection for Type H boilers. Identify all of the parts of the system. Look for what is there as well as what is not there. Make sure it is plumbed primary secondary. In most cases, with no indirect domestic hot water present, Mode 1 will be your choice. If you do have an indirect domestic hot water tank present on the system loop, then it's a Mode 2. If the indirect domestic hot water is present on the boiler loop, then it's a Mode 3. Moving on from hydronic and into WH appliances, as in water heaters. With an XFIIRE purchased to be a water heater, there is only one mode of operation, so the plumbing is more specific. Here is a drawing for a water heater application. Important notes. City cold water always comes in on the outlet side of the boiler to be mixed with the hot water the boiler is producing on the way to the tank. Here the tank works like the decoupler, and the S3 sensor is placed in a dry well in the tank. That wraps up another boiler bite-sized bit. Look for more boiler bite-sized bits from Raypak. Raypak, engineered to perform, built to last.